I never imagined the first sign that someone was trying to steal my land would be a police cruiser creeping up my driveway at 7:30 in the morning. Not a lawsuit, not a warning letter. A cop. And standing at the edge of my property watching it all unfold with a phone in her hand was the woman who would later try to sell my ranch worth nearly $9 million without my permission. That morning began exactly like thousands of mornings before it. The sun was just starting to climb over Heritage Valley, that soft golden light spilling across the pasture, catching the mist that always hung low in the grass. Steam rose from my coffee mug as I walked toward the fence boots damp with dew. My 3 horses were already waiting heads low patient the way they always were. This land wasn't just a place I lived. It was rhythm, habit, memory. The last thing my grandfather left me when he passed bought back in the early 60s when this area was nothing but open fields and dirt roads. Feeding the horses at 7:30 wasn't something I thought about. My body just did it. Same path, same gait, same quiet. Then I heard gravel crunch. I froze. One boot suspended in the grass, my stomach tightening before my mind even caught up. Nobody ever came up my driveway that early, unless something was wrong. When I turned, the sight of a black and white patrol car rolling slowly toward me made my chest sink. No lights, no siren. Just slow, deliberate movement, like someone searching for a problem. The officer stepped out, hand resting casually on his belt, eyes scanning my property as if he expected chaos instead of 3 horses chewing hay. He was polite, professional, almost embarrassed. "Morning, sir," he said. "We received a complaint about agricultural machinery operating before permitted hours." I stared at him. Then I looked around, then back at him again. "What machinery?" I asked. He mentioned a tractor, a generator, something loud. I let out a short laugh, not because it was funny, but because it didn't make sense. There was no machinery, no engines, no noise, just animals, birds, and the faint hum of a highway half a mile away. He walked the property anyway, took notes, checked his watch. The horses barely looked up. After 15 minutes, he closed his notebook and said exactly what I already knew. "There's no violation here." He apologized for the inconvenience and walked back to his car. That should have been the end of it. But as the cruiser rolled back down my driveway, something caught my eye. At the far edge of my land, near the boundary line, someone stood perfectly still, arms crossed, phone raised. Vicki Peterson. At the time, I only knew her as the HOA president. She'd been elected about a year and a half earlier, always dressed like she was heading into a corporate boardroom instead of checking her mail. Perfect hair, sharp blazer, clipboard practically glued to her hand. We'd exchanged maybe 3 words total before that morning. But the way she stood there photographing my ranch and the departing police car sent a cold wave through me that had nothing to do with the morning air. That was the first moment my gut told me something was wrong. 2 weeks later it happened again. Another squad car, another officer, another complaint. This time about odors, agricultural odors. I was spreading compost, something I'd done every spring since I moved back full-time. Completely legal, zoned, normal. The officer confirmed it, again. But this time, Vicki didn't stay at the property line. She walked right up, clipboard in hand, and started explaining to the officer that community standards evolve, that what might have been acceptable decades ago wasn't appropriate anymore. She said it calmly, confidently, like her opinion should override county law. That's when it finally hit me. This wasn't misunderstanding. She was testing boundaries. From that point on, the pressure escalated fast. Neighbors who'd waved to me for years suddenly stopped making eye contact. Conversations ended when I walked up. A private HOA messaging group appeared overnight, one I wasn't invited to. I found out later Vicki had been going door to door telling people my ranch was lowering property values, that I refused to modernize, that I was selfish, a problem. Frank Morrison used to stop and chat with me about football and weather. One afternoon at the grocery store, he stood behind me in line and started talking loudly about how some people think the rules don't apply to them. He never said my name. He didn't have to. I stood there holding a carton of eggs, face burning, wondering how I'd become the villain in my own neighborhood. Then the letter came. Certified mail. 6 pages. 12 violations. $900 in immediate fines. plus daily penalties stacking up like interest on a loan I never took out. My mailbox height, prairie grass my grandfather planted, the security lights I installed after the police visits started. All suddenly violations, all suddenly urgent. I sat at my kitchen table that night staring at those pages, feeling something heavy settle in my chest. Not anger yet, something worse. Doubt. I started asking myself questions I never thought I'd ask. Am I being unreasonable? Am I the stubborn one? Would it be easier to sell and walk away? Would peace be worth giving this up? I didn't sleep much after that. Neither did the horses. I could feel the tension bleeding into everything. Every passing car made my shoulders tighten. Every envelope felt like a threat. That was the lowest point, the moment where giving up felt tempting. What pulled me back was Tom Morgan. He lived 3 houses down. Quiet guy. Turned out he was a property attorney. He looked at the violations, shook his head, and said something that cut straight through the fog. "This isn't enforcement," he said. "This is pressure." He helped me start documenting everything. Dates, photos, receipts, timelines, and while we were digging, I stumbled across something else. County planning records, a development study filed months earlier, roads, commercial access, utilities, and right there in the center of every map was my land. The deeper I looked, the clearer it became. My ranch wasn't just valuable, it was necessary. Without it, the project stalled. With it, someone stood to make millions. Then I found the corporate filings. Vicki Peterson listed as a paid consultant. Compensation tied directly to project approval. That was the moment the puzzle snapped into place. The police calls, the fines, the social pressure. It was never about rules. It was about removing me. Once I understood that, fear turned into something else. Resolve. The HOA announced an emergency meeting. Folding chairs packed into the community hall. Neighbors divided without even realizing it. Vicki stood at the front, confident, talking about banning agricultural activity entirely, about progress, about protecting investments. When it was my turn to speak, my hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. I laid everything out. The documents, the maps, the recordings, the money. I watched faces change in real time. Shock, anger, betrayal. Vicki tried to interrupt, tried to reframe it, but the room wasn't hers anymore. The board called for a vote. She was removed on the spot. No applause, no cheers, just silence. The kind that falls when people realize they've been lied to. She walked out without looking back. The fines disappeared. The threats stopped. The pressure evaporated. The ranch stayed mine. Standing there afterward alone again on my land, watching the sun sink behind the hills, I finally felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. And the lesson was simple. Sometimes the most dangerous threat doesn't shout or break in. Sometimes it smiles, holds a clipboard, and tells you it's for your own good.